While Insomniac was busy working on Ratchet Clank Future Tools of Destruction for the PlayStation 3, High Impact Games stepped in to create a Ratchet Clank title for Sony's PSP. High Impact Games was made up of many former Insomniac employees who were eager to give their own spin on the series. In early 2007, the game would be released as Ratchet Clank Size Matters, and for some reason Europe was not offended by this title and thus it kept the same name in the PAL region. A year later the game will be ported over to the PlayStation 2, and that is the version I'm looking at in this video. Some of you might argue that the PSP version is superior, but from what I can tell there are no big differences that make one version better than the other. Now with that out of the way, it is time to begin the journey.
I swear, Clank, I'm done with all that hero stuff. Now, let somebody else save the universe and... I need a little me time.
Ratchet and Clank are enjoying their vacation on Pokutaru when a little girl named Luna approaches them and informs them that she is writing about heroes for her school project. Not long after that, Luna is kidnapped and it is up to Ratchet and Clank to save her. Along the way, they encounter Captain Quark, who is trying to find his parents. Though he is reluctant at first, Ratchet agrees to take Quark with him. Once they reach Caledon, Ratchet ends up getting captured by Luna, who is revealed to be evil. Thus it is up to Clank to save Ratchet. Meanwhile, Ratchet's DNA was taken to create an army of Ratchet clones to serve evil Emperor Otto Destruct. After Clank saves Ratchet, the duo goes to Denya Moon to stop the robot puppet Luna. While trying to hack Luna, Clank gets knocked out and Technomite soldiers enter Clank. Ratchet shrinks himself and manages to eliminate the intruders, after which Clank reveals the location of the Ratchet clone factory. Ratchet and Clank fight their way through countless Ratchet clones until they finally reach the man himself. Otto reveals his plan to steal intelligence of beings around the galaxy. Ratchet and Clank stop him, at which point Quark learns his real parents were killed by Otto's minions. Otto's mind ends up getting transferred with Scrunch, taking out the villain for good. The game ends with Ratchet and Clank back at their apartment, watching a commercial about Ratchet clones being sold as toys, while they accompany the shrunken Quark.
Hey, I was just getting to the good part.
He may be small, but his ego is still big, huh?
This story is without a doubt the weakest out of the series, out of the games that I have played up to this point. Ratchet is back to his hot-headed temper, which is more frustrating than entertaining. Quark is more stupid than ever, losing his selfless intentions for some dumb fun that doesn't stick the landing. Finally, the villains are so underwhelming and forgettable that I already forgot their names after finishing the game. So if the story is bad, is the gameplay at least good? Sadly, no. The benefit of the PS2 version is that you get to play with the lock strafe mode, which is unavailable for the PSP version. Unfortunately, this doesn't fix the more glaring issues. The biggest sin is having a really bad weapon roster. The weapon selection of Size Matters is the worst one so far, as we have seen most of these weapons in previous games and they feel extremely weak. This includes the Lacerator, which is a standard gun with decent damage, and in challenge mode you can get the dual Lacerator to do double the damage. The concussion gun is the worst shotgun in the entire series, as it is extremely weak, meaning you will need several shots to kill even the most basic enemies, so don't waste your bolts on this weapon. Another underwhelming weapon is the Acid Bomb Glove that drops acid on the ground, which isn't all that useful, thus I hardly used it. The Agents of Doom make a return, and even though they are weaker than previous iterations, I ended up relying on them to defeat enemies in the more challenging later sections of the game, though they are useless in the Dreamtime sequence as they can't attack floating enemies when not fully upgraded. The B-Mine Glove ended up being much more useful than I expected. With this glove you can deploy B-Mines that seek out nearby enemies, which is useful in combination with the Agents of Doom and your standard weapons. The Mutator turns enemies into cows, the Suck Cannon sucks up enemies, the Sniper Mine is an extremely weak sniper rifle, the Scorcher is a short-range flamethrower, the Shock Rocket shocks enemies and can be somewhat useful, the Laser Tracer shoots a powerful blast that runs out of ammo incredibly quickly and can only be used while standing still. This weapon is quite useful, though sadly you can only get it at the end of the game. The Static Barrier is arguably the most useful out of the weapon roster, as it allows you to take another hit without getting damaged, which allowed me to beat the final boss. And finally there's the Rhino that is as expensive as ever, and given the lackluster gunplay of Size Matters, I didn't bother to get it. Aside from weapons, you also get access to several gadgets, with the Hypershot and PDA making another return, as well as some new gadgets, such as the Polarizer that activates magnets, the Shrink Ray that shrinks Ratchet, the Map-O-Matic shows hidden areas, the Sprout-O-Matic allows you to plant vegetation to solve puzzles, the Bolt Grabber picks up bolts from a wider range, which is pretty useless, and the same goes for the Box Breaker, which breaks all nearby boxes if you do a Hyper Strike. These can still be nice additions, but the problem is that the annoying part of the first game returns, as you earn way too few bolts, which is frustrating as all other Ratchet & Clank games fix this issue. To make up for this, Size Matters offers some challenges that you can do to earn bolts. This includes the Skyboard challenges that are just not that enjoyable, as the board you control is extremely sensitive and the races go on forever, so once I completed them, I never did them again. Aside from that, there are Clank challenges that revolve around scoring goals, beating up other contestants in the vehicle and solving some puzzles. These are extremely basic, but I don't hate these Clank challenges. I certainly don't love them, but they are not as frustrating as the skyboard races or some of the other sections in this game. Though compared to the arena of the other Ratchet & Clank games, this is just a huge disappointment. Other frustrating parts are the gravity sections as you move extremely slow and it is easy to fall off since you move extremely clunky, making these sections very frustrating, and I was just glad when it was over. The planets themselves are also nothing special, as they are really linear and therefore not fun to explore, though they are visually appealing to look at. The most frustrating part in this game is without a doubt the final boss, as he can kill you in just 2 hits. On top of that, he has a difficult to dodge attack, meaning you will likely die lots of times. So if you don't come prepared, you're in for a serious challenge. But if you make sure to upgrade the powerful weapons and get the static barrier, you should be fine. There are only 2 things I like about this game over its predecessors. Firstly, the hacking minigame that has now been changed into grind rail sections, which is much more enjoyable than a tedious puzzle blocking your way. Secondly is the fact that you can now customize your armor set for additional bonuses, making for a great way to personalize your playstyle. While I played Deadlocked in challenge mode all the way through the end because I had so much fun, I had no desire to do so in Size Matters as the guns are not fun to use and there's no real incentive to continue playing aside from obtaining another armor set and getting the Rhino. This isn't a huge issue, but given that the other Ratchet & Clank games are so much fun to replay, it sticks out. While there is a multiplayer mode in Size Matters, it's just a lackluster addition as there are only 4 really boring maps, especially when compared to the much better multiplayer of Ratchet Deadlocked. So go play that if you want some local multiplayer fun.
Good luck with whatever that was you were doing.
In terms of graphics, there are quite some issues, as the camera is way too close to Ratchet in my opinion and the frame rate is much lower, which is especially jarring after playing Deadlocked, which ran smoothly aside from a few dips during the more hectic parts. The biggest issue though is Ratchet's design, which I really don't like as his head seems way too big and out of proportion compared to the rest of his body. The cutscenes and gameplay are also disjointed as the cutscenes are pre-rendered, meaning Ratchet isn't wearing any of his armor you might be wearing in the game, which made me feel less immersed while playing. This is especially noticeable with the Luna boss fight, as it constantly cuts between gameplay and cutscenes. At least the soundtrack is nice, but compared to the other games, it is also the weakest soundtrack out of the Ratchet & Clank games.
No. Not at all. You seem a-okay to me.
After playing Size Matters, I can say with full confidence that this is my least favorite Ratchet & Clank game. While there are some things to love, like the armor sets, unfortunately the negatives far outweigh the positives. With weak weapons, a terrible camera, low frame rate, low bolt earning, no replay value and a horrible final boss. Now that I have played this game, I am glad that I never have to play it again, and I'm looking forward to the presumably much better Ratchet & Clank games on the PlayStation 3. Unfortunately, I have to review one more PS2 game before I can move on, which is Secret Agent Clank. And since I have heard that that game is even worse than Size Matters, I'm not looking forward to play it. And next year I will see for myself just how bad that game is.
I do have a massage scheduled in 15 minutes, but oh, what the heck. I could use a bit of exercise. Come on, buddy. Let's put on a good show for our little reporter here.
I am going to regret this.